How is seine fishing done? As its name suggests, supported by a boat, the school of fish is surrounded by a net enclosed with a purse at the bottom, underwater, forming a net before being lifted into the boat. In this fishery, yellowfin tuna is exploited intensively, supplementing skipjack and bluefin tuna, and fleet technical, regulatory and operational efforts aim to reduce and eliminate the above. Actually, the dolphin's accidental mortality was successful. Official standards also establish terms and conditions for the capture of small pelagic fish species, such as sardines, by vessels equipped with seine nets, to promote the sustainable use of marine resources. Bluefin tuna are caught by trawls, hooks, line, long line, or by traps, fixed traps near the shore, but are mainly caught with tuna seines. In the Mediterranean, more than 90% of bluefin tuna catches are made using this method. These industrial fishing vessels are super sophisticated, powerful and fast, with speeds of 16 knots or 50 km per hour, capable of detecting schools thanks to the latest generation of electronic devices. Radar, sonar. They deploy a seine line, a giant net cast in an arc that can cover up to 20 hectares of sea and capture its assigned quota in a matter of days. This method raises questions because it targets large individuals that come to breed in specific areas, especially around the Balearic Islands, Sicily and Malta, over short periods of time, mid-May to mid-July. Not only does it literally empty the marine environment, but it also harms non-target and highly endangered species, stingrays, turtles, sharks, whales, especially because many tuna fishing vessels use fish concentrators. FAD, a smart floating system that attracts fish and remotely notifies the vessel about the number of fish available. In this case, bycatch could account for 5% of the total catch. In the Mediterranean, many people believe that industrial seine fishing is unfair, as a few large vessels share almost the entire quota to the disadvantage of small vessels that now demand access. More resources. Bluefin tuna are also subject to recreational or sport fishing, when affiliated with a federation, which is strictly regulated with a ban on the sale of fishing products. In 2020, the quota assigned to recreational fishing in France was 60 tons. In Monaco, bluefin tuna fishing conditions are established by sovereign ordinance. Tuna are caught by trawls, hooks or by traps, but are mainly caught with tuna seines. In the Mediterranean, more than 90% of bluefin tuna catches are made using this method. These industrial fishing vessels are super sophisticated, powerful and fast, capable of detecting schools thanks to the latest generation of electronic devices. They deploy a seine line, a giant net cast in an arc that can cover up to 20 hectares of sea and capture its assigned quota in a matter of days. This method raises questions because it targets large individuals that come to breed in specific areas over short periods of time. Not only does it literally empty the marine environment, but it also harms non-target and highly endangered species, especially because many tuna fishing vessels use fish concentrators. A smart floating system that attracts fish and remotely notifies the vessel about the number of fish available. In this case, bycatch could account for 5% of the total catch. In the Mediterranean, many people believe that industrial seine fishing is unfair, as a few large vessels share almost the entire quota to the disadvantage of small vessels that now demand access. More resources. Bluefin tuna are also subject to recreational or sport fishing, which is strictly regulated with a ban on the sale of fishing products. In 2020, the quota assigned to recreational fishing in France was 60 tons. In Monaco, bluefin tuna fishing conditions are established by sovereign ordinance. Good information is needed to save the ocean. Without solid scientific analysis, researchers cannot study what they cannot quantify, and government agencies cannot regulate activities such as fishing. Simply put, conservation and sustainable use of marine resources cannot be achieved without first collecting good data. In the case of tuna, one of the most commercially valuable fish species in the world, such data is now more important than ever. Most tuna stocks are already fully exploited, meaning at best there is little or no opportunity for expansion, and at worst, there is a risk of collapse. This is why unattended tuna fishing is unacceptable. Commercial tuna fishing is becoming more transparent, but there is still much work to be done. Tuna represent an important part of the vast marine ecosystem, especially in international waters known as the high seas. Large numbers of vulnerable species move among tuna schools, including sharks, turtles and seabirds. These animals can become trapped in fishing activities, a real challenge known as bycatch to conservation. While tuna are vital to the ocean, this fish is also a vital source of employment and food security for millions of people. As an economic activity, commercial tuna fishing generates more than $42 billion per year, a figure that researchers say is a conservative estimate. Most tuna are caught using a method called seine netting, which involves a large net used to surround a school of tuna. This type of fishing gear is intended to catch tuna species, such as skipjack, a type of fish that is processed and canned mainly for salads and sandwiches. Thanks to global efforts and government-implemented regulations, most industrial purse-seine vessels are extensively monitored, with onboard observers or electronic monitoring systems collecting data on their activity. Fishing activities of ships. Long-line vessels, which use fishing lines that stretch for miles with hooks that sink deep below the ocean's surface, account for about 12% of the world's tuna catch, or more than 500,000 tons of fish. It is estimated that thousands of these long-line vessels fish around the world, and in many places there is little information about what they are doing and catching and where they are doing it. This lack of information deprives scientists of essential data on species other than accidentally caught tuna such as sea turtles, sharks and rays. It also opens the door to illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, and deprives coastal communities of the benefits of their resources. The majority of the tuna we purchase is caught using approved fishing methods, either by purse seine or pole fishing methods. These two methods are briefly presented below. Seine fishing is a suitable and effective method that allows vessels to catch and freeze large quantities of tuna. Seine boats fish by spotting schools of free-swimming tuna, or using floating objects to attract fish. These objects can be natural or man-made, such as fish aggregation devices, FADs. This method involves placing a structure towed by boats, buoys, nets and anchors, as well as hundreds of meters of cables, strategically placed in the waters of the Strait of Gibraltar, to initiate fishing bluefin tuna during their migration to the Mediterranean Sea. After experts select the adult tuna that has fallen into the net and release the remaining live fish into the sea, as well as the tuna that do not exceed the required weight, the lifting process will take place, including involves lifting the fish. Net with tuna floating on the water. Then, the snoring technique is performed, manually carve tuna with a knife. Red tuna au madreba is a traditional and ancient technique adapted to the needs of the current market. Au madreba season begins in May and ends in July. This is when bluefin tuna descend to spawn from the coldest waters of the Atlantic to the warmest waters of the Mediterranean through the Strait of Gibraltar. Although the season begins in May, it is true that the au madreberos prepare the manual assembly of nets and anchor structures in February. Although this technique may seem violent, the truth is that it has been hailed as one of the most sustainable forms of fishing. In fact, According to a study published in 2015 by the European Parliament's Fisheries Committee on Almadriver, it states that no fishing gear in the history of mankind has been proven to be selective but still sustainable and respectful of environment. Although the emergence of new technologies has led to the modernization of networks and vessels, this approach has remained practically the same for millennia. But the truth is that this fishing technique is gradually changing. In fact, Almadriver is adapting to the new needs of the consumer market, mainly the Japanese market. The trapping season ends around mid-August when the permanent structure to the sea is removed and the aquaculture phase begins. These traps have been adapted to meet the needs of the Asian market, which seeks specimens with high fat content. Bluefin tuna is such a valuable fish that by the 1990s, stocks of the species were depleted due to overfishing. This situation prompted tuna fishing nations to respond in 2006 by agreeing to strict fishing quotas with a 15-year recovery plan. This measure has helped tuna stocks gradually recover. Despite this, Almadriver is a method of fishing that has been punished for these excesses. Currently, bluefin tuna farming is increasing according to experts in the fishing industry. This increase, combined with the high value of bluefin tuna, is also causing an increase in illegal and unreported fishing. Seine fishing is done with the help of a boat surrounding a school of fish and closing a net around them. After closing the net will be loaded onto the boat and the caught fish will be separated from the rest of the marine fauna. It is important to emphasize that this technique is carried out carefully to minimize the impact on the marine ecosystem and ensure the sustainability of fish stocks. Tuna fishing is one of the main uses of purse seine fishing. In Mexico, this activity is carried out in the waters of the exclusive economic zone and focuses mainly on the capture of yellowfin tuna, skipjack tuna and bluefin tuna. Over the years, various technical and regulatory measures have been implemented to reduce accidental mortality of dolphins and achieve successful results. Seine fishing is also used to catch smaller pelagic fish species, such as sardines, which adhere to fish. In seine nets, where tuna is caught, is important for two reasons. First, stocks may be close to collapse in some places but not in others. For example, yellowfin tuna is dangerously overfished in the Indian Ocean but is found in greater numbers in the Pacific. Second, fishing methods vary from place to place. So while there are plenty of skipjacks in the western and central Pacific, they are often caught there in nets and fads that also bycatch big-eye tuna. Tesco everyday value tuna chunks are good because they are skipjack tuna caught with a pole and line. While Waitrose yellowfin tuna steaks I don't know, as they may be line caught in the western and central Pacific, good, or they may be long line caught in India degree yang, bad. They also cost 10 times as much. Oh, understand how this all works, and how it could work better. Imagine the vast swath of water between the west coast of the US and the eastern flank of Asia being cradled by a string of islands, Pacific island nations, like a watermelon teetering on the bowl of a long-handled spoon. More than 1.5 million square miles of ocean make up the watermelon, and are home to migrating tunas worth billions in the global market. The fish don't care about national borders. But people do, especially in places where there is little land and few natural resources to claim besides the fish in the water. So it is that island nations and states, from Papua New Guinea to Hawaii and south to New Zealand, have staked their claims to swaths of ocean in the tuna's paths. On maps, each nation sits within its own ring. And everyone generally agrees that the rings denote each nation's territorial seas. A smattering of treaties and agreements delineate who can fish where within the rings. And the unclaimed sea beyond is governed by regional authorities that function about as efficiently as the US Congress. Marine observers like KGLB are deployed in concert with the rules that nations and regional authorities make. Employed by a handful of companies and several governments, their job is to collect important data about the fish and to ensure that the people on the boats don't pillage or pollute. Thus, marine observers are the last men and women standing between any island nation and the destructive potential of its seafaring visitors. Sometimes that's a dangerous place to be standing. This is where more than half of the world's tuna supply comes from. It includes fresh-caught fish as well as canned, though the cans fuel the wealthiest actors. Canned tuna accounts for 2/3 of the $42 billion industry worldwide. The companies behind the Bumblebee, Chicken of the Sea, and Starkist brands control the largest share of those cans. It is this multi-billion-dollar haul that entices vessels from all over the world to hunt what is arguably the largest and most lucrative wild protein supply left on Earth. But while marine observers protect the fish, there are scant protections for the observers themselves. Sometimes, the job is a little like being sent behind enemy lines to make sure that the other army plays fair.